You are listening to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, providing those with a desire to grow with the simple, consistent actions needed to master personal development and create the life they yearn for. I'm your host, 𝘁repetition. A few years ago, I was unfulfilled and unmotivated, like I had lost my sense of purpose and my life was merely passing by. Since then, I've been on a continuous journey of personal development and self-mastery that has transformed every aspect of my life. Now, my mission is to inspire you to grow, stand out, and take action towards a purposeful and fulfilling life. Welcome to episode 269. In today's episode, I carry on with the concept of reflecting and consolidating the learnings of the most recent previous interview episodes. So instead of adding more knowledge, I revisit the previous episodes and consolidate the wisdom imparted by my guests. My intention in these episodes is to distill the wisdom that my guests shared and present it to you in a way that you will find something that clicks for you, something that inspires you to take a kind of action as a result. I have realized more and more that repetition is the mother of learning, and that's why I find it important to revisit the previous episodes and break down the learnings of the conversations, convert them into actions, repeating key points. And if you've listened to the podcast a few times, then you've probably have heard me saying that my mission with Personal Development Mastery Podcast is not to inform, is not to pass on information. Rather, it's more about influencing, inspiring positive change, creating transformation. You know, there is an abundance of knowledge out there. Lack of knowledge is not the issue in the time that we live in. I believe that what's missing is converting this knowledge into actions that will create behaviors, that will create results, change, improvement, self-growth. And in these episodes of reflecting and consolidating, my intention is to pick those actions, those elements that you can implement in your life. I hope you find it useful and valuable. So today I will reflect and consolidate the learnings of the 5 previous podcast interviews I've done. And before I do that, I will take a moment and make a special mention of the previous episode where I discussed my experience and my insights after having done a 10-day silent meditation retreat, a Vipassana retreat. There is so much that I express there in terms of the actual 10 days and the learnings and all these things. So just in case you have missed that, it's episode 267 about Vipassana. So going back to the consolidation. The first conversation I will discuss is episode 260 with 𝗁𝗲 Lansdowne. We discussed the psychology of being healthy and how to not get sick and die. 𝗁𝗲 is a nutritionist, scientist, speaker and health coach. This particular conversation, I will admit, is one of my all-time favorites of the podcast. So I will recommend that you click on the link in the show notes and listen to it in its entirety if the topic of health concerns you at all, which I can't even think of anyone that health is not something that they're interested in. Anyway, we discussed the topic of Western medicine versus quote-unquote alternative medicine and how the Western medical paradigm, which the majority of us have been conditioned to accept as the proper way to health or healthcare, it is actually the youngest of all the medical modalities that exist. It's only about 150 years old, whereas all the others are in the thousands of years. So which one is the alternative? Matt talked about how he started questioning this medical paradigm while working as a medical researcher in a hospital and realizing how the real causes of disease are not addressed, only the symptoms are. He spoke about how it's only in the last 2 generations that we have converted to a world with so much chronic disease where literally every second person, that's 1 in 2, will get cancer, 1 in 4 diabetes, 1 in 7 heart disease. Basically, everyone will get something. And that's why he created his podcast, How to Not Get Sick and Die, to help people get out of this unhealthy world that we live in. Matty also discussed how your postcode or your zip code is more influential on your health and the outcomes of your health than your genetic code, because where you live is more likely to determine the health outcomes you will have than any genetic tests could ever predict. We also discussed shifting our emotional handling and stress, the biology of belief, this outstanding book by Dr. Bruce Lipton, and more. As I said, it's one of my all-time favorite interviews, so well worth you checking it out. The second episode I will consolidate today is 262 with 𝘁𝗸𝗂𝘀𝘆𝘀, who spoke about the power of imagination and how to turn it on. We discussed which factors actually kill your imagination, and he mentioned techniques and practices to use in order to strengthen and train your imagination. One very interesting thing he spoke about was how imagination can help you discover your purpose. We are creating beings and our purpose is to create, and often it's like little hunches that we have in ourselves, and having the courage to follow that golden thread, as he called it. The third episode I will consolidate today is 264 with Joe Moffett. Joe is a mindset coach with a master's degree in performance psychology, and he worked with Tony Robbins for years. In our conversation, he spoke about the common patterns that block people from achieving their peak performance, and he named the top one out of them, which is the fear of what could go wrong. He also discussed the 6 pillars of mastering life by design: your health, emotions, relationships, finances, lifestyle, and the spiritual. And mastering your life by design is really about consciously creating the life that you want, a life on your terms, not by what people say you should be or do or have. One other thing Joe talked about was to check in on your thoughts regularly. He actually suggested to set an alarm for every 1 hour and check in on your thoughts and say, what am I really thinking about right now? Because when you can stop and really be aware of your thoughts, that's when the beginning of change can take place, creating a habit of becoming aware of your thoughts. There are 2 more interviews that I will briefly also discuss and consolidate today. The first one was episode 265 with 𝘁𝗸𝗂𝘆𝘀, who discussed bridging the gap between science and spirituality and how emotional stress inhibits our physical healing. Keith has the unusual ability to see the human energy field, the aura as they say it, which he has utilized in an innovative energy healing modality he co-founded. It was a truly engrossing conversation. We spoke about the closet gap between modern science and spiritual traditions, about how thoughts are things and they crystallize into our physical body and more. So if you are intrigued by this topic, then you must listen to the episode with 𝘁𝗸𝗂. And the fifth and last interview of today's consolidation is episode 266 with Michael Thornhill. Michael is another truly fascinating individual who, from a recruiting business in London, partying a lot and being addicted to different drugs and so on, he became a traditionally trained plant spirit healer. He co-founded the 𝗁𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗃 in Peru, where he runs Ayahuasca retreats, helping people activate their intuition, empower their healing and embody their truth. If you are a dedicated inner truth seeker or even a curious one, you will enjoy this episode. Michael spoke about ayahuasca and how it offers an unwavering knowing of truth with the entire being, not just mentally. So if this resonates, I will direct you to episode 266. So these were my reflections and consolidation from these 5 episodes, and you will find the links to them in the show notes. And one other interesting thing to mention, I've recently started using a new app called 𝗁𝗹𝘂𝗀𝗃𝗃. With this you can ask any question you want and get a voice answer from the person you're asking, like a mentor. So if you want to ask me anything, you type in the question and I will answer it via a voice message. You will find the link in the show notes. It's called 𝗁𝗹𝘂𝗀𝗃𝗃, an app. It's an app that I see a lot of potential in, so check it out. And the best questions I will read along with my answers in following podcasts. I hope you found this episode useful and valuable. If you want a special ebook that I have created containing the best usable wisdom from some of the most important previous podcast episodes, then go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/ebook, and there you will find implementable strategies on a multitude of topics, from finding your purpose to calibrating your intuition, money mindset, visualization techniques, emotional intelligence, improving your meditation, the Wim Hof method, and more. And one last thing, if you found today's podcast of value, please take a moment to leave me an Apple Podcasts or Spotify review and share how personal development mastery has made a difference to you. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.